Hi, I'm Tim Newton, just up front saying that these are my personal opinions and don't necessarily reflect that of the tiger. I'm about to get a little bit gloves off, so you've been warned. So today the Thai government has officially announced a vaccine passport. The documents are going to be the next big thing in this long and winding COVID road. Firstly, before some comments, the details that we actually know. The COVID passport legislation has now been announced in the Royal Gazette, so it's not being considered, it's actually law. According to media info, the vaccine passport will be an official document which can be used by vaccinated people travelling abroad. The cover contains text in English and Thai, which bears the department's name and that of the Public Health Ministry. It carries the national emblem of Thailand and the wording COVID-19 Certificate of Vaccination. The document will also carry the bearer's name and details of their nationality, ID and travel passport details. It's understood that only vaccines approved by Thailand's FDA or by the World Health Organization will be recognised in the vaccine passport scheme. Well, that should cover just about everything that's currently and broadly available. It must be signed by an approved disease control official. For now, there are only 6 such officials in Thailand to sign the document, and each person will have to have their own vaccine passport, so you can't have a family one, for example. So from the get-go, all this is nothing really new. We've had to carry proof of vaccination in the past, although over recent decades, few countries have insisted on this type of documentation to travel. But certainly when I was younger and travelling, I had to have vaccination stamps and letters from my doctors. So it's not as if someone has just suddenly come up with the notion of a vaccine passport to make our lives more difficult. And if it allows us to get onto a plane or into a country sooner rather than later, then so be it. It's probably just a minor inconvenience. But having said that, I'm not 100% sure if a group of military generals and former military flunkies are the best people to administer such an important document. Despite its love for paperwork and red tape, Thailand has never been seen as the pinnacle of efficiency. And who are these 6 people, the only people that can sign off on my vaccine passport? Do I have to pay for it? I bet I do. Do the hospital or clinic that administered my vaccine send off for the paperwork? Or do we have to chase it up and travel to the location of the 6 officials? The next issue is how the vaccine passport may be used as another informal tracking device. Now, I appreciate I probably start sounding like one of the paranoid that spend their days tapping out conspiracy theories on the internet. Heaven knows we get our fair share at the Tiger. But if it's okay for an airline or country to demand a current vaccine passport to travel on their plane or into their country, it's just one step away from that same demand to come from shopping centres, dentists, cinemas, bars, workplaces, hospitals, even the immigration department when we reapply for our visas. So then how do we cope with all this? We'll end up with just another layer in Thailand's already multi-layered but not always directly expressed discriminations. There'll be those that are vaccinated and those that are not. Okay, it's fine for those people who choose not to be vaccinated due to their personal fears, invented or otherwise. But there are others who will be economically, culturally or medically unable to be vaccinated. They won't be able to get a vaccine passport. You can be 100% sure that the vaccine passport or a recognised similar document will be required as a condition of entry into Thailand for the foreseeable future. The needs of bureaucracy and the joy of officialdom and paperwork will outweigh the critical needs of Thailand's devastated tourist industry. And if you think that this will be waived to bolster Thailand's tourist numbers, you haven't lived in Thailand long enough. On a wider note, neither national governments or big tech have recently shown the type of trust that we're now being expected to offer these institutions. Data links, selling off of personal data, and a lack of transparency are now just routine and regular headlines, yet we're all going to be told that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and we'll simply have to comply with this new level of intrusion and lack of private rights for the sake of perceived public health and safety. In the US, UK and Australia, big tech is now being granted the rights to develop online versions of these sorts of documents. That means even more access to your personal data. Is it a good idea to empower faceless, centralised authorities to have more access to our lives? Authorities we haven't even voted for. Here in Thailand, the situation is even more opaque, especially if you're a foreigner. In fact, opaque doesn't even start to paint the picture of utter confusion for foreigners trying to live and work in Thailand. After 10 years, I've seen it all. I've been asked to offer bribes. I've read countless horror stories of Thai justice coming down too often in favour of the locals. I've experienced official and less official discrimination, even in and around my workplace. So if you're asking me to trust the Thai bureaucracy with administering my vaccine passport, I'm certainly not jumping up and down with enthusiasm. And if it's all going online, then I'm even more sceptical. The standard of IT in Thailand's leading public service departments is abysmal. Just try doing your 90-day report online over the last 3 months. We must have had over 100 emails about the issue. You just think that it's not too hard, but it always is. And if the computer says no, it's just no. Now, I still love living in Thailand, but the bars you're expected to jump over just keep getting higher. And a quasi-democratic government run by proxy by a military elite is not going to be the people I trust to administer this important new documentation. I fear this COVID passport will just end up as another victim of unintended consequences. The benefits mostly intended for international travellers will be used as another way of whittling away our remaining privacies and adding another layer of little annoyances to life and work in the land of smiles. Look at the vaccine rollout in Thailand. Usually a business should try and under-promise and then over-deliver. In this case, the Thai government have done the exact opposite. Timelines for vaccination are not being met, and the ordering of vaccine appears chaotic and at best just slow in getting to the start line. The PM has rushed to assure the citizenry that the delays have been caused by an abundance of caution. And unfortunately, the two horses they've backed in the vaccination race are having a few bad PR days, and neither may be a long-term solution to the latest variants of COVID-19 spreading around Thailand. I'm all for trying to get the country open again as soon as practicable and safe to do so. But I'm starting to think the best course of action for me is to lock my gate and resort to an online work life and food panda. The mad foreign guy locked up in his house with his 3 cats. Here in Phuket, we now have an arrival regime that demands either proof of vaccine, a negative COVID test, or a 300 baht rapid COVID test at the airport. The chances of me subjecting myself to an airport official sticking a swab up my admittedly large nose in the vague hope it will probably come back negative is 0. Again, on a daily basis, we get emails from foreigners who say they've been whisked away to hospitals, and more recently field hospitals, with no recourse or means of appeal, or even the chance to get a second test. Here's one from this morning. Now, stripping all this back to basics, I'll concede that we're all in this mess together, and that we may have to forego a few personal freedoms for the greater good. I've got no issue with wearing a mask in public. I've got no worries about leaving my phone number at the door when entering a premises. I'll do my best to stay socially distant when in public. But all these restrictions are easy to ramp up and much harder to wind back. And at a deeper level, our trust in institutions, governments and medical officials is being eroded. And that's not good as we stumble forward in trying to get the world open again. Will I get a vaccine passport? Probably, and I'll also expect to carry it everywhere I go, as it's used as just another reminder that I'm a guest in this country and I better just get used to it.